Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Aroma with a View by Renee George, narrated by Margaret Strom. Chapter 1. And I said, just because you drop a pretty penny for a meal doesn't mean I'm dropping my pretty panties, said Tippy Davenport. She tossed her long blonde hair behind her shoulder and hooted. And, oh, baby, was he ever livid! In the living room, a nervous titter of laughter erupted from our guests. Marjorie Meadows, an old friend of my mother's, and the Field of Meadows Art Gallery's co-owner, clapped her hands. Ha! You said baby. I get your pin, she said. The shower guests were playing the diaper pin game. You claimed a safety pin from anyone who spoke the word baby during the shower. The person with the most pins at the end of the party would win a gift certificate to my store, Sense and Sensibility. I watched Tippy hand over her diaper pin as I readied the next baby shower game of Pass the Pacifier in the dining room area. It appeared the girl could care less about the game, because she immediately launched into another ribald tale. Oh, boy. Jilly Martin walked over to me holding a glass of orange sherbet, lemon-lime soda, and tropical fruit punch. My BFF since childhood wore a buttery yellow cashmere sweater that looked lovely against her warm skin tones and dark hair. We need to make more of this liquid gold, Nora. That's the last cup. She sniffed the drink. You'd think this stuff was spiked with premium rum, the way these ladies are going through it. Nobody sins on a Sunday, I said. We'd picked a Sunday for Pippa's shower because that's when most of the guests were available to attend. Besides, I added, are you sure it isn't spiked? I gestured toward our loudest guest. I cannot believe that's Pippa's younger sister. Although the sisters shared a similar fine-boned, willowy appearance, they were definitely polar opposites in the personality department. Jilly, eyes wide, nodded her agreement. They say an apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but I'm pretty sure Tippy and Pippa aren't from the same branch. I gave a low whistle. I don't think they're from the same tree. If our Pippa is an apple, Tippy is a nut. Jilly giggled. Reese looks like she's trying to come up with a good reason to arrest the nut. Reese McKay was a newly promoted detective with the Garden Cove Police Department, but I'd met her when she was a uniformed patrol officer. I'd helped the local PD with a few cases, and she and I had become friends as a result. I shrugged. How much worse could it get? Tippy guffawed as she tossed her long blonde hair back, then said, Whatever you do, don't fall for a married man. I don't care how ugly, emotionally distant, or frigid he says his wife is. He is never going to leave her. Tippy turned her bright blue gaze to Lila Rafferty, my ex-husband's wife, put the back of her hand to her mouth as if she was going to tell a secret, and added, I learned that the hard way. She glanced around at her audience and held up 2 fingers. Twice. Lila, who was officially in remission from her cancer after a successful bone marrow transplant last summer, laughed so hard I couldn't help but smile. Lila's cancer had almost killed her, and even though she was still as thin as a rail, she'd put on a couple of pounds in the last few months. I'd lost my mom to cancer almost 2 years ago in April. When I found out last year that Lila had lost most of her hair to chemo, I'd given her all of my mom's lace front wigs. Today, Lila wore a blonde bob number that my mother had loved, and it made me feel like a piece of Mom was still here with me. Jilly, who could always read my emotions like a book, nudged me gently. "I miss her too," she said quietly. I put my head on Jilly's shoulder for the briefest of moments, then used a baby shower napkin to dab my misting eyes. "I think Dolly is going to implode from embarrassment," whispered Jilly. I cut my gaze to Dolly Paris, the owner of Dolly's Dollhouse Emporium and Museum, and watched her clutch her pearls, literally. She wore a strand of cultured pearls and earrings to match. Her gaze darted between her 20-something daughter, Carrie, who seemed enamored with Tippy's stories, and the door. Jane Beets of Beets Treats, a candy and sweets shop where I bought brownies way too often, snickered. Tippy's scandalous behavior proved to be more entertaining for everyone than celebrating my BFF's pregnancy and upcoming wedding. Pippa was miserable, as evidenced by her taking yet another super-long bathroom break. When Pippa rejoined the party, she came up behind me and leaned in. Her voice was tight as she spoke through gritted teeth. "Jilly, why did you invite my sister?" Jilly flushed. "I thought it would be nice for you to have some family at your baby shower." "And is it?" Pippa asked. "Is it nice?" I choked back a laugh. Jilly had extended the invitation to Pippa's mother, but the woman, who had a problem with her daughter having a relationship with a man of Geordie's ilk, had summarily declined. I think she might have forgiven Pippa for the pregnancy, but she couldn't forgive her for getting engaged to Geordie. So much so, she cut Pippa off from her allowance. Of course, up until all this happened, I'd had no idea Pippa had an allowance. It turns out her parents owned a chain of hotels in Illinois. I mean, I knew Pippa was educated and had excellent taste, but she'd always lived rather modestly, not like someone who had a lot of cash to burn. "We're running out of punch," I said. "I'll get some lemon-lime soda from the garage to make more." "I'll help you," Jilly said. Pippa grabbed us both. "Oh, no, you don't. You guys will not leave me alone in here with her. Nora, you go distract Tippy while I get the soda." I'm not up for another one of Tippy's smell-o-vision memories. Last January, I'd died for 27 seconds on an operating table. After I was revived, I'd developed a talent for seeing scent-related memories. Just not my own memories. The sweet citrus scent of the punch had invoked Tippy's memories of a cheerleading camp where she'd gotten caught playing 7 Minutes in Heaven with a friend's boyfriend. She'd been wearing orange sherbet lip gloss at the time. In the memory, she had been mortified when the closet door had swung open, but today she'd been smiling when she thought of it. "I think your sister has a thing for guys who are unavailable." "Better lock up your men," Jilly muttered. Pippa rested her forearms over her basketball-sized belly. "I'm not worried about Geordie." "The only thing I'm worried about is getting through this next game." A tap at the back door window drew my attention. The face peering back at me through the pane glass made my heart flutter. "Speaking of fellas," I told my besties, "I'll be right back." I put on my teal, puffy winter coat before stepping out into the backyard. Ezra Holden, a.k.a. my fella, met me on the deck. He wore gray dress pants, a pale blue button-down shirt, and the same black blazer he'd had on the first time we'd met 11 months ago. It had been an official encounter, since he'd been serving me with a restraining order. It felt like ancient history now as Ezra wrapped his arms around me and gave me a kiss. "Hey, sweetheart." I melted. "Hey." He grinned, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "How's the shower going?" "So far, so good," I chuckled. You looking for an easy arrest? Because I think Pippa wants to press charges against her sister for existing. Existing is a hard charge to make stick. Ezra slid his hand down my backside and gave my rear a squeeze. But I might be persuaded to do a 24-hour hold. I rose up onto my tiptoes and kissed him until a soft moan escaped his lips. Thanks to LASIK surgery in September, I had the eyes of a teenager now. But the best part was being able to see Ezra's gorgeous green eyes clearly when we were this close. I smiled. I can be very persuasive. You certainly can be, Ezra agreed. I heard laughter from inside the house, reminding me of my hosting responsibility. I love this surprise visit, but I know you wouldn't have come all the way out here just for a stolen kiss. You'd be surprised at the lengths I'd go to get a kiss from you. I let out a giggle that ended on a nervous snort. All right, then, I said softly. You better get going now so I can finish up here. You're still coming by tonight, right? Wild horses couldn't keep me away. Gosh, this man made me giddy. I took a breath to clear my head. It's a date. Perfect. He reluctantly let me go. Hey, can you tell Reese I'm here? I need to talk to her for a minute. I raised a brow. You could have called her. Then I wouldn't have gotten to see you in the middle of a workday. He chuckled. I texted her. I narrowed my gaze. She told you to rescue her, didn't she? Laughter sparkled in his eyes. I'm actually here to rescue whoever Tippy is. Reese mentioned the words handcuffs and duct tape in her text. I gave his chest a quick pat. Pippa's sister is, a lot. Sister, huh? I always thought Pippa was an only child. She wishes. He chuckled. Tell Reese to meet me out front. Ezra said, his tone more serious. Hey, is something really wrong? He straightened his jacket. Remember I told you there was a robbery at Myers' Jewelry last week? Reese was the detective on the scene. The smash and grab? Everyone in Garden Cove had heard about the heist. The perpetrators had broken in at the end of the day, forced the owners to disarm the security system, and shattered all the glass displays. The jewelry had been swept clean, and the burglars had managed to escape without leaving any evidence behind. The thieves wore masks and bulky trench coats, so the in-store cameras had been mostly useless in identifying the duo. Sean Rafferty, my ex and the chief of police, had petitioned the town council for more money to install security cameras downtown, but so far the measure hadn't been approved. I met Ezra's gaze. Did someone else get robbed? Today, he said. The Diamond Daisy. I tucked my chin. That's Dan Briggs' place. How awful for him. He told me he's barely making ends meet this winter. Many of the businesses in town were hit hard during the off-season. No tourists meant little to no money coming in. Several of the stores in the downtown area, what the locals called the Strip, had been closed since November and weren't planning to reopen again until the end of March. Mr. Lems, the man who owned the antique furniture shop next to Sense and Sensibility, had said it was cheaper to close temporarily than to pay to keep the lights on. Pippa, Jilly, and I had managed to keep our store in the black because of bulk sales of my skin and face lines to a chain of medical spas across the country owned by the celebrity duo of Dr. Corinne and Nurse Mary. Even so, hardly any of these businesses in town, other than a few restaurants and convenience stores, were open on Sundays right now. Why was Dan at work today? The Diamond Daisy wasn't open, was it? I asked. Ezra shook his head and frowned. Mr. Briggs had gone into work to restock shelves and do some maintenance. He said he went into the back of the shop to get some cleaning supplies and found the burglars waiting for him. Is he okay? Dan was a big man at 6.5 feet tall, and he sported a beard that would make the ZZ Top guys jealous. Even in his 60s, he was formidable. His size alone had to give the thieves pause. He said they had guns. I rubbed my arms. Cripes. Who robs a souvenir shop? People who don't know it's a souvenir shop, said Ezra. Locals are aware the Diamond Daisy has nothing to do with diamonds. The back door opened and Jilly stuck her head out. Hey, she hissed. It's getting tense in here. Tippy is talking about nude yoga, and I think Dolly is one downward-facing dog story away from an aneurysm. I'll be right there, I said. I stared up at Ezra. I'll send Reese out. Love you, he said. Love you back. After Ezra walked away, Jilly dragged me inside the house. Pippa is ready to fake contractions to end this baby shower. We might have to stuff Tippy into a closet, I said. I went into the living room and put my hand on Reese's shoulder. Ezra's out front. He says he needs to speak to you. Reese cast me a grateful and relieved look as she stood up. Duty calls. Nice party, Nora. Thanks for inviting me. She grabbed her purse, put on her coat, and hurried out the front door like she was escaping prison. Jilly waved at me from the kitchen. I went to her. You cannot leave me alone again. She glanced around conspiratorially. Pippa can't kill her sister. Not yet, anyway. But I'm an easier target. It's not that bad, I assured her. She gave me a doubtful look. I grimaced as our very pregnant and unhappy bestie stalked our way. Okay, it might be that bad, I admitted. Maybe I should hide the cake knife. Eep, Jilly chirped. She'll forgive me though, right? Eventually. Pippa balled her fists and planted them on her hips. She's telling them about the time we snuck into the prince's room. Which prince? Harry or William? Asked Jilly. Wait, why were you at Windsor Castle? I wasn't. I'm talking about Prince Carl Philip of Sweden, she said. At the penthouse suite at my parents' hotel in Chicago. I've never heard of him, but wowza, Jilly said, awestruck. Your parents know royalty? Not really. The king had some business in the city, and my parents had a penthouse suite available. She smirked. However, Prince Carl Philip is gorgeous. He could give that guy from the 50 Shades movies a run for his money. I raised a brow at Jilly. That's a story I want to hear later. Maybe when this baby is out, and I can tell it over a glass of wine. Pippa smiled at Jilly. Her sister laughed loudly again, and Pippa's smile turned to a sneer. She lightly punched my shoulder. Fix this, or I'll swap out labels on your soap-making supplies. I gasped with mock outrage. You wouldn't dare. I could see my friend was in distress, and considering she was 8 months pregnant, I didn't want to make her more miserable. Not even with a well-intentioned celebration. Maybe we should just skip right to the cake and presents and get the party over with. Can we? Asked Pippa, with such hope in her voice, I felt my stomach drop. I hadn't realized how close to the emotional edge Pippa felt. Before I could answer, Carrie shouted, "Mom!" The three of us moved quickly into the living room. Dolly sat on the couch, gasping noisily as she rummaged through her purse. "Is she having a panic attack?" Tippy asked. "I've had one of those before. So not fun." Jilly moved into rescue mode and made a beeline for the woman. Dolly, whose name conjured up visions of Dolly Parton, was the exact opposite of the iconic singer. She was a few years older than me, but her gray hair was styled in what Jilly liked to call nursing home chic. She also dressed like a retired librarian. Jilly undid the top pearl button of Dolly's pink cardigan. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Carrie frantically dug through her mom's purse. "It's not in here," the younger Paris said. "What are you looking for? An EpiPen?" I asked. The way Dolly was struggling to breathe made me think it was something more serious than a panic attack. "Is she having an allergic reaction?" Had the white chocolate chunk cookies I'd served for the party caused some kind of anaphylaxis reaction? I grasped Carrie's wrist to get her attention. "Does your mom have a nut allergy?" Carrie, a dark-haired girl in her late 20s, shook her head. "I'm looking for her inhaler. She doesn't have food allergies. She has stress-induced asthma." Pippa cast an accusing glance at her sister. Tippy bugged her eyes. "I only mentioned one Kama Sutra position. We hadn't even gotten to the lotus position yet." "Oh, dear God," muttered Pippa. She glared at her sister. "Stop talking." Tippy pressed her lips together and scooted back into her chair. "Do you remember putting the inhaler in your purse before we left?" Carrie asked her mom. Dolly nodded, then rasped through sips of breaths. "Yes." Carrie frowned. "She keeps a backup in her car. I'll get it." The young woman jogged to the door, flung it open, and exited the house, leaving the front door wide open. Jilly leaned Dolly forward and grabbed the nearest coffee cup. She paused, leaned in for a long sniff, and wrinkled her nose. "This has alcohol in it." "Damn it, Tippy," Pippa said. Tippy brought her hands up. "It's not mine." Pippa scoffed. "Yeah, right." Jilly wasn't having any of the sisters' arguments. "Enough. We need a stimulant, not a depressant," she said. "Someone grab me a cup of black coffee. Hold the vodka." "Oh, for Pete's sake," Pippa said with exasperation. Tippy hopped up from the couch. "I'll get it." She headed to the kitchen. "How do you know all this stuff about asthma?" Marjorie asked Jilly. "My daughter, Ari, had a friend in 5th grade who was asthmatic. I learned a lot about how to help ease breathing during an attack with what you have on hand. Coffee is a stimulant, so it dilates the lungs. If worse comes to worst, we can put her in the bathroom and steam up the room by turning on hot water taps." I nodded. If worse comes to worst, I'm dialing 911. "Already on it," Pippa said as she pulled her phone from her purse. Dolly tried to stand. "No," she said. "Don't call. I'll be okay." A scream from outside brought all the chaos in the room to an abrupt stop. "Carrie!" Dolly wheezed. "That's Carrie!" Chapter 2. Ezra stood near the open driver door of Dolly's gold hatchback, which was parked at the end of my driveway facing the house. He held one hand out toward the car and one hand on his gun. Carrie sat in the driver's seat, but it was hard to see her with the sun glinting off the windshield. Reese was on the passenger side of the car, her phone to her ear. Her face was pale, but her expression was determined. I jogged toward them. What happened? Stay back, Nora, Ezra demanded. His fierce tone stopped me in my tracks. Carrie, I need you to keep holding as still as possible. Don't make any sudden moves. Had Carrie done something illegal? Carrie! Dolly stumbled across the lawn, apparently recovered from her asthma attack. What's going on? Why are you holding my daughter hostage? Ma'am, you need to stay back, Ezra cautioned. A high-pitched squeal escaped the young woman. Carrie! Her mother shouted. Jilly slung her arm around Dolly's shoulders, comforting her, but also keeping the panicked mother from rushing toward the car. All the guests from the party now stood on my lawn, their gazes locked on the car. I walked slowly around toward the passenger side. Reese, who was standing in front of the open door, shook her head at me. What's this about? I mouthed. She held up a finger. Yes, hello, she said into the phone. This is Detective Reese McKay. I need animal control and an ambulance dispatch to Hawthorne Subdivision, 602 Dogwood Court. Animal control? I decided Ezra wasn't angry. He was scared. But of what? I tried to cycle through all the animals that might be out in the winter. Raccoons, maybe. Cougar? Doubtful. Maybe a rabid squirrel? I was reasonably sure opossums holed up in dens during the winter. I slow-walked to the grass, joining the baby shower guests. Pippa sidled next to me. Do you know what's going on? Ezra, I said with a measured tone. Give us the quick and dirty. You have a yard full of freaked-out witnesses, and one of them is Carrie's mom. Snake, Ezra said. A great big copperhead, I think. It's in the floorboard, so it's hard to tell for sure. Dolly gasped. Her breathing turned into a harsh wheeze once again. Oh, she gulped. Oh, no. I glanced at Jilly. She nodded. I've got her. Please help me, Carrie whimpered. Help is on the way. Hold real still now. Ezra cautioned again. A sudden move could make it strike. Are you kidding me with this? Tippy said in a hushed whisper from behind Pippa and me. I thought living in a small town would be boring, but this is the most excitement I've had in months. I find that hard to believe, Pippa said. Tippy crossed her arms and frowned, but said nothing else. I took Pippa's fine-boned hand and gave it a squeeze. You don't see any snakes this time of year, I said, let alone poisonous ones. Reese, who was off the phone now, nodded. Yes, they usually hunker down in a rock den until spring. It's moving, Carrie said. I feel it wrapping around my foot. Does anyone have a flashlight? It was 47 degrees outside, but Ezra's face was flushed, his forehead beaded with sweat. I want to get a better look at it. I've got one, Lila said. She pulled a yellow mini flashlight from her purse and trotted over to Ezra. And don't worry, she directed at Carrie. Snakes don't like the cold. Probably why it's in the front floorboard. It's trying to soak up some engine warmth. The light from a flashlight doesn't generate any heat. She handed the mini to Ezra. Thank you, Mrs. Rafferty. He clicked the flashlight on and shone the beam toward Carrie's feet and swore. Cripes. Ezra's mouth was set in a grim line. It's got to be at least 5 feet long, and it's coiled around the foot pedals. See? Lila said.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?